Moving on, let's go back to the front pages this morning. Of course, Keir Starmer says, I'm going to make it easier for illegal migrants to come in. Oh, by the way, whilst I'm at it, I'm actually going to get closer to Europe. No one knows who's running the Labour Party. I mean, could they be any more disastrous or out of touch with the British public? Loads of voice notes. Claire from the Wirral, good morning.
Good morning, David. Claire from the Wirral here. The working class of this country feel alienated by the political classes. If illegal non-British aliens are being led and fed and housed and given money and basically rewards for doing nothing, yet as citizens of this country, the people, especially the young people, are not being prized and valued, not supported and given work prospects such as training schemes and work apprenticeships, then Reform will continue to grow and prosper as a so-called far-right party. Reform is far right now because the other parties have become more far left. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Trevor is in Lancashire. Good morning.
Morning, David. If you call people far right long enough, people start to believe it, and that is what they are doing. They are just constantly calling for Reform far right so that people will start believing it.
I was asking this morning, this lazy trope, Reform is a far-right party, what does that mean? Is it? I don't think it is. But obviously, as we heard there, Trevor says, if you call it the name for long enough, it sticks. I think it's an attack line, actually, from Labour, because I think Labour is panicking. I think the Tories are panicking as well. I was told the other day by a friend of mine the only solution is for a merger with Reform and the Conservatives, and I was saying absolutely not. There is no way that's happening. It's happened once before, and look what happened. Robert has left a voice note on immigration. Good morning.
Good morning, David. I'm absolutely gobsmacked at what this government is doing with immigration. I'm ashamed and disgusted by my government. They don't act or speak on my behalf. Have a great day.
Thank you for that, Robert. Roy, also on immigration, good morning.
What will the Muppets do when some of these immigrants decide to turn terrorists? Will the idiots in 10 Downing Street cover it up and say, no, they weren't terrorists? I think they would. Anything to stay in power.
It's a really interesting point, that, and of course they're trying to crack down on hate speech. What they mean by that is people who are deeply concerned about the direction of this country, undocumented illegal migrants coming to this country. We have no idea who they are, where they've come from. Oh yeah, we'll give them a house, we'll look after them, we'll hotel them. And that is what is underpinning all of this, in my humble opinion. That was Roy there. Nick also sent a voice note. Good morning.
Morning, David. Tony Blair despises populism because that's the very mechanism by which the people tell the politicians that they're in charge and the politicians work for the people. That is the last thing that Tony Blair ever wanted, and it's certainly the last thing he wants now when he's in charge of his globalist revolution. Have a good day, David.
I think you're right. His answer to everything is ID cards, and this globalist agenda is deeply worrying. We don't matter, actually, according to Tony Blair, or this is my thought process behind him. We don't matter. These forces at Davos, the World Economic Forum, the globalists who are all conspiring, they have a plan, and the plan doesn't include actually consulting anyone who actually votes. John is in Woking. Good morning, John.
Good morning, David. The one person who's not been mentioned in this immigration talk is our dear King.
Yes.
Now, all these people who are coming to Britain, they've got no values, British values. I wonder what they're going to think of our royal family when Prince George comes to the throne, what are they going to think of him? You know, they all want, millions of them want Sharia law.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, of course, the king is apolitical. Politically, he's not allowed to get involved. Now, what we don't know...
Can he, what's that term about Parliament?
Dissolve.
Dissolve Parliament. Can he do that?
I think theoretically the answer is probably yes, but constitutionally, theoretically, but it would never happen. There would have to be a parliamentary mechanism to have a general election.
Well, when his grandchildren and great-grandchildren are wiped out and no longer on the throne and no longer running this, leaders of our country, he may think different.
John, really...
I would, wouldn't you?
Well, it's an interesting call, interesting thought, John. Thank you. Derek is in Manchester. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I mean, just appalled by the headlines.
Lively show as usual.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, it's thanks to all our listeners and viewers.
I had to phone up because you had such an idiot on before saying how welcome we should be to all these migrants that are sneaking, stealing the way into the country, basically. For such a young chap, I couldn't believe it because at the end of the day, when he ends up unemployed and no pension and all the rest of it, is he going to be sorry for what he said this morning? Oh, what a joke. I mean, I happen to remember in the 70s when Labour were in, they left the country in an absolute mess. I mean, we were having power cuts every week and all the rest of it.
I remember.
We were going to the shop for candles. And then, of course, when Tony Blair was in, I remember, and Gordon Brown, I remember him actually standing there, calling an old woman from Rochdale, a bigoted old thing. And at the same time, he was saying, we are going to have a points-based Australian system. Now, that was all them years ago. And we're still talking the same rubbish now from every party, not just Labour, every party that's been in since I was born. They've all told a pack of lies and they've all carried on mass immigration regardless of what the people think. And isn't it about time they stopped? Isn't it about time we got a proper party that will, and as you say, populism. Yeah, populism, because we do employ them when all's said and done. We're the people paying their wages. I think they've all forgot this over the years. I really do. And what you've just mentioned there about them calling reform far right, they would have obviously called Winston Churchill far right as well, because he wanted to save the country. Were Reeves used far right? Was he an extremist? Should Trump take his bust out of the White House now because he was an extremist?
Well, I share your frustration. The whole thing is absolutely nonsensical, and this terrible labelling of reform as far right, as many of you have said this morning, is just ridiculous. Thank you for all your calls this morning, Peter Cardwell. Good morning.
Good morning, David.
That's lucky. I nearly wore a pink shirt.